if you make a decision to do something and you believe in it 100 and X%, there's got to increase the likelihood of it. If you're committing yourself to a goal and it's not realistic, all right, then there's every likelihood that you'll slip back into the way that you were previously. It's got to be important enough for you to have the discipline. It's all about discipline, right? So the belief has got to be big enough for you to apply the discipline and then overcome the obstacles which will come your way.
You've got to get around people that are doing the shit you want to be doing on the level and volume of what you want to be doing. Go in and be the damn student. I could learn from every person in this room. Think about how you talk about your business. Yes, passion sells, but you can't carry on a real conversation outside the passion. You're gonna lose. So the whole point of all of this is, 1, show up as you, fucking loud. 2, get yourself in frickin' rooms that scare the shit out of you. It's really about looking at those things that you know will move the business forward and doing them anyways. Thank you for allowing me to always show up as me, and thank you for showing up as you. Welcome to Growth Mode. All right, Doug, I have a philosophical belief that goal setting straight up just doesn't work. I think we've been preached at our entire lives to set goals, set goals, set goals. So people think that that's the only way to find success in their businesses, life, and the likes. And I know you write a lot about goal setting. So I'm looking forward to hearing you out and talk to me. Where you stand on goal setting?
Well, let's see, Donnie. I'm known as the goals guy. So that's like, right, red rag to a bull, if you like. I mean, there's scientific studies which says that you're incorrect. There's my research from 125 podcast episodes interviewing goal setters, goal getters, financial gurus, coaches, entrepreneurs. And well, they have one thing in common, right? They're all successful for a start. And then the second thing that they all seem to have in common is that they set goals. Now, there are different ways of setting goals, obviously. And the stats, state that, I think it was a Stanford University thing, 92% of people don't have goals and only 8% of people do. So, you're okay. You're entitled to your opinion. I can come up with some, personal examples where having goals in my life have made a difference to me. How we can make it simple for everybody, how it will help your mental health. I'm a great believer in that. If you're wandering around, without any direction, it's like, you're open to be battered by that sort of stuff.
I get it.
But anyway,
there's been some recent studies that have come out that Huberman, who does Huberman Labs, a phenomenal podcast. He's a researcher at Stanford, maybe. I probably screwed that university up. But he had a fascinating study that he did on visualizations, and he took on long distance runners. And to listen to him talk through, what he found with long distance runners was they never visualized the goal line, like the finish of the race. Because if they visualize the finish of the race, the ultimate goal, they would ultimately get deterred by the amount and the distance they had to cover. So what they found is long distance runners did not set a end goal per se. It could be argued they set some sort of micro goals, but they would run to a given spot. And once they got to that spot, they would pick another spot down the road. There was another study that came out that, and I wish I could cite this one, and I'll put this one in the show notes. But what they found is when most people actually visualize themselves having accomplished the goal, the brain shuts off and says, okay, good job. You've done it. That goal's done. That's been accomplished. For my entire journey, I've been a guy that set goals and then would not achieve them for various reasons, but mainly I believe through this philosophy of, my mind said, okay, it's done. You don't have to do this. So help me out here, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are like me that are struggling with this.
Yeah. And clearly, 92%, a vast majority of people do not get goals, right? They just don't get it. And that's fair enough, right? But if we can make a difference to 1 or 2 people, or, an extra 3 or 4% of people along the way, that's got to be cool for a starting point. But it's possible. And I'm going to take a little step back to your long distance runner, right? He's saying, well, he's only going as far as that next point. Well, isn't he setting just a more meaningful, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, trackable goal?
Yeah.
Right.
When I heard it, I even had that same thought. Like, that could be argued as, isn't that a goal? And truthfully, the whole point of the study may have been the big end goal. Maybe there's something there to be said about, micro goals or some sort in there. But I just know for most people, goal setting is a demotivational thing.
Yeah. And I would suggest that they've likely set their goals too big based upon their expectations, and their capabilities, because you've got to be able to actually physically do the thing, right?
But where's the big, hairy, audacious? What about the big, hairy, audacious goals that's been talked about for years? Where does that come into play?
Yeah. Okay, well, first off, just to have one big, hairy, audacious goal, right? That's your North Star, if you like, your peak thing. And I have no doubt if we delved into your situation a little bit, there's something that you're aiming for, something that you want to achieve, right? And it's huge relative to everything else that's got going on. But so along the way, I mean, you need to cut your teeth on some of this stuff, all right? And have achievable, seriously achievable, like easily achievable goals. If you've never, ever set goals in your life, you need something that, you can do just to get into that little bit of a habit on it.
Give me an example.
Well, one of my goals way back when I started this, now, I've been doing goals for nearly 20 years now, right? Okay, so I've got a bit of background. There you go. But one of my starting goals was, I am an excellent timekeeper. Right? That's simple, isn't it? All you need to do to be an excellent timekeeper is turn up 10 minutes before anybody's expecting you to be there, and you're an excellent timekeeper. And that serves a lot of little things. It'll serve the fact that you're paying respect to the person that you're going to see, because, you've agreed to meet them at a certain time and you're going to be there. You've said, or you've done what you said you were going to do. So it covers off a lot of little things, but, just that was a simple one, right? I am an excellent timekeeper.
So define a goal for me then.
No, that's a good question. That's a good thing.
Because what I just heard you said doesn't make me think that's a goal. I'm not saying it's not. I just want to hear your definition.
Hey, man. But if you're MrLastMinute.com, right? And, all the time, every single time you leave the office to go to an appointment or a meeting or whatever, it's 45-minute drive from where you are, or, we don't do that in Zooms now, but I'm talking 20 years ago when you went out and met people, right? physically. If it's a 45-minute drive and you're leaving the office at 42 minutes before you're due, right? You're
Yep.
setting yourself up for failure because you're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. Every single car driver on the road is going to be an idiot in comparison because they're in the way, right?
Right.
So, so having a goal to be on time or be an excellent timekeeper, gets rid of an awful lot of stress. I know that doesn't answer the question, all right? I know that. That would
But
be
that was a good
your little
explanation of it,
comeback.
though. That was a good explanation of where that could potentially lead into being a goal, right? Because
Well, thank you.
seriously, for that person, if they are trying to change a behavior, which is being on
Yep.
time, then
Yes.
setting the task that I will be a person that's going to be constantly on time, you know, makes sense in how I understand of the framework of a goal.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Another simple, small one, right? Which I've lived most of my life is I do not sweat over problems. Okay. That was a goal that I gave myself. And I came across, I think Jack Canfield came up with E+R=O, where event equals, event plus reaction equals outcome, right? Events happen. We can't do anything about events,
Right.
right? They just happen. The only thing that you are able to control is your reaction to an event.
So how is
Your
that different?
reaction will then determine the outcome.
Right. How is that different than just
So
a
that's
simple affirmation?
what that one is, an affirmation, but it supports the goal
Ooh, so I think
because
we're
the
gonna have to go
goal is I
back
do
and
not sweat over problems.
so for it to be a goal, you have to accomplish something, correct?
Wow. Yeah, I would say so. I would say that's a reasonable traditional assumption of a
Okay.
goal.
All right. All right. And I'm really not trying to play devil's advocate on this, right? I'm really trying to wrap
Oh,
my
and
head
I'm
around
really
this.
trying to have some fun with you too,
Good,
because
good,
that's what you
good.
said when we
So
started.
yeah, good. So the if it has to have a Tampa, you have to complete something, right? Um, I'm sure there's an evolutionary stage of goal setting that could be absolutely work. Um, how do I then go this route? How do I determine what goals I should be setting
Mm.
that have a tangible thing that I can actually accomplish?
Okay. Well, I start with most of my clients, my coaching clients, with like, right, come on, let's have 10 goals, right? 10 goals. And you basically write them down. I was referring to a little notebook here. Okay. I was having a
Okay.
look at my goals because I wrote my goals in this notebook in 2004.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Okay. And I still have the original. I have fresh ones for my clients, but they don't have these little things because the idea is you write your goals down to start with, right? To start with, you write the things that you want to achieve today. And if you can manage 5, if you can only manage 5, then that's fine. But, we'll try for 10 goals. Following day, you write them down again without referring to the ones you wrote down the day before. And then the following day, you write them down again without referring to the ones that you wrote down the day before. Gradually, like cream, the really seriously important goals for you will rise to the top of the list. You will write those daily. Okay.
Yeah, that's
And there will be
interesting.
goals that come in. There will be goals that come in, right, that are only important that day,
Mm.
and they'll never get on the list ever again, which is why you do the exercise for a period so that you can find out what's really, really important for you in simple terms. Okay. So like, my goals back then were I have completed the London Marathon, right? I own or ride a custom 1200 custom Sportster Harley Davidson. Right. I live in a house that is immaculately presented. Back then it was I am happily married to my wife. These were sort of goals. So I am happily married to my wife is a complicated one because obviously, how do you measure it? How do you measure a woman's happiness? Right.
Mm.
That was dry. That was dry British humor there. Okay. So, it's sometimes it's difficult, but those were the things that I was writing down on a I wanted to be happily married, and I wanted to ride this motorcycle, and I wanted to earn this amount of money, and I wanted to drive this car, and I wanted to, you know, and that some of it is feeling, but you got to see in all of that, it was like pretty much money led.
So how many of those things did you actually accomplish?
Well, that is the thing. That is the really, really mad thing because I wrote the book in 2004. And I know I wrote it in 2004 because I started training for the London Marathon in 2004, right? And I
Yep.
ran it in 2005.
Nice.
So I must have written it before,
Right.
okay?
Good assumption, at
Because
least.
yeah, and that's the only assumption I've got because I didn't date the book, right? However, when I started running, I could run about 200 yards and then I would throw up. And we've all been there,
Yes.
right? Right at the beginning of any
Yep.
journey, right? Yeah. So I wrote the goals and then you get bored with it, right? And then gets tucked in the drawer. And I found it 5 or 6 years later and I'd completed 10 out of 11 of the goals on the list.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because I told my subconscious that these were the things that I wanted and it hunted down. Well, no, it doesn't hunt down actually, because the information we need to go forward is always there. It's always available to us, right? The information is always available to us. It's only when we tell ourselves what we want that it actually shows up properly. So,
I've told myself a lot of things over the years that I wanted.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I can promise you the things that I haven't gotten far outweigh the things that I've actually gotten. You
okay,
know,
yeah. I
what
mean, and that's fair enough, okay. But it's like it's not as simple as just writing it down. Okay, there's this thing, because we talk about affirmations and the law of attraction, and a lot of people forget to mention this thing called work that has to come with it. Okay,
No.
because sitting on the beach thinking I want to be a nomad millionaire, if you just sit on the beach, it's not going to happen.
Right. So, and most people find when they're trying to go the nomad life that they end up having to be in one place to actually pull it off because they got to find enough hours in the day to do the work. Now,
Absolutely.
you know, so I am an action oriented guy. Like most of the people that I coach with literally say, okay, Donnie, I'm going to tell you something, do nothing with it. Because if you tell me something and if I believe it's the right answer, I'm just going to go do it. Right.
Yeah.
I'm
Fair enough.
just how I'm wired. So for me, it's usually a thought process, and this could be a goal of we need to get the company here by X date.
Mm,
Cool. Right. That's the goal.
mm,
Let's go rock it out. Now for
mm.
me, I have to go, all right, what are my 3 levers I can pull that will allow us to accomplish that?
Yeah.
But I also know that along the way that there's a series of events unknown that could happen that literally make that original place we wanted to get to, we can call it a goal, that we wanted to get to completely irrelevant.
Yes.
So like my largest goal I have 2 major missions in my life, right? Mission number 1 is I want to help as many people get to freedom through building a business as I possibly can, right?
Yeah.
That's an unmeasurable thing. There's
Yes, of
no
course.
way to put a number to it. The second thing
Yeah.
I want to do is I want to change how the world networks, right?
Yeah.
It's another
Yeah.
untangible, right? There's no way I
Yeah.
can say when that is accomplished.
Hmm.
So for me, it's like more of a vision of what I want to do and something I can keep striving towards.
So
What?
go
Go
on.
ahead. Go ahead. No, jump in, because I'm trying to wrap my head around where it's different now from a vision to a goal.
Right, but the vision is the big picture thing, right? That's
Yep.
and we need to have one of those. That's our big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And we don't
Okay.
know how necessarily. This is the thing. We don't know how we're going to pull it off, right?
Right.
And I've got enough examples where it's like we thought the process was this. However, what happened was this. The end result was still the same. However, it didn't it didn't happen the way we were expecting.
Right.
Okay. So all the way through my journey on the goals and goal setting, I've set myself an income figure. I've, increased the income figure and I've increased the income figure. And I've got an example with like my as a individual with 2 part-time members of staff, I wanted a £250,000 turnover business.
Okay.
Okay. $250,000. That's a reasonable
Yep.
amount of money for most people. Right. When I did my books, my wife did my books and she presented them to me. Our turnover was 250,278 quid. Okay.
Okay.
That was like within a smidgen of a percent of the figure. And along the way, I didn't, I was just doing my stuff and it came about. So then I increased that figure. And what do? When you hit a big goal, you just double it.
So why
So
didn't
I
you
hit
set a
half.
$25 million goal?
Well, because if I told my subconscious that, it would go, based on the knowledge that we have about you, your capability, the contacts that you have and all the rest of it, that is too big a jump. And that could be where a lot of people have the problems.
Agreed.
Subconscious just goes, do you know what? You've got 5 clients and you want to turn over £1 million?
So
It's not going to happen anytime soon.
like I hate the acronym SMART goals, right? It just that
Yeah, yeah.
frays in my soul. But
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then where
That's
it
cool.
comes that thing is that whole word realistic. How do you define what's realistic? Just to this point of the 250 to 25 million, right? That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But that's going to be on an individual basis based on their subconscious, based on, their background, their beliefs, the things they've done, because
Mhm.
another person, $25 million is like way too low.
Yeah.
So what's the
But they're not
determining?
coming from $250,000 turnover, are they?
Right, right, right. So it's the
Right.
experiences.
They bought and sold a £10 million, 10 million property. And it's like, then it's just serious scale.
For sure.
Instead of 250 employees, I now need 2,000 employees to achieve that. But I know the structure and all the rest of it, and I know I have the contacts and the availability to be able to go. Yeah, I can do this now.
So should then goals be incremental in nature?
It wouldn't hurt until you start believing in them.
So it's almost like a way to game the system, if you will, your mental system to buy into
Accept,
the idea of goal.
yeah, accept it. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. That's why you need to have a couple of easy peasy ones to cut your teeth on that, you can knock out of the park within, 2 or 3 months time. And then from there you can improve and then you can improve. But the point is, I hit my 250K income figure and increased it to 500,000. And the following year a firm approached me and said, we'll buy your business off you. Right. And they paid me 510,000 in 1 year and 525 the following year. And it's like, well, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, another 3 or 4 years of hard graft scaling and all the other bits and pieces. And that's the point. You don't know how it's going to happen. It's like, and the data's out there and we just need to tell our brain what it is that we're looking for. If you took up photography today and walked into the mall supermarket, we call it. All right. You walked into the mall, into the main shop there, and you walk down the magazine rack, you'd find that there's 10 to 15 photography magazines. That mall's been there for 10 or 15 years, and those magazines have been there for the last 10 or 15 years. You've just walked past them because they had no value to you whatsoever. But because you've told your subconscious that I need to do this, right? That's why I took the phone call from the firm, because I told my brain that I needed, I'd done 250, so I wanted 500. And the conversation just happened, and it was like, and ordinarily I would like, yeah. Listen. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. I'll think about it, come back to you and brush them off. But it's like, they said something and it triggered, and it was like, oh, flip me.
Man, that almost feels like flying by the seat of your pants, right? Because in my head, what I heard was, I'm going to hit my 250, and then we're going to shoot for 500, and we'll see what turns up as we go along the way.
No, because I was expecting, because I'd gone from 100, I'd gone to 200, then I'd gone to 250, right?
Yep.
Over a period of time. And then it was a case of, right, okay, well, this works, so why not go for something a little bit bigger?
So did you set a goal
Imagining
then?
that I would need to.
Yeah. But once you get to 500, did you set a 750 to then a million? Or because you got to
because
500?
I sort of I got 500 twice, and it was like, well, I wasn't expecting that. All right. So I'm in a period at the moment where, lots of little things. It's like, that's more money than I was ever expecting in my whole life, to be fair.
Right.
My brain hasn't been set for banking £1 million in a relatively short space of time. And going on from there, you've got to be set for that sort of thing as well, because lots of things have happened since, which mean I don't have all of the million.
Life happens, for sure. Right?
Life happens. Indeed it does.
So I can remember in my early years when I was getting into my first kind of real big boy sales job, I was around 23 years old. And as I was going in for the interview for the job, I had in my head that, man, I wasn't going to take less than a $36,000 a year draw. Okay. 36,000 US draw, straight commission position, but they gave you a draw base. Right. And I remember in the negotiation, I was prepared to fight. So you can remember, it's 24 years ago, or 24 years old. That's 20 years ago. Right. So I'm getting ready to gear up to have this huge negotiation about my salary. And I'll never forget Jay Miranda looking at me going, well, I can only offer you a $40,000 draw. Now, this was $4,000 over what my highest number was, right?
Yeah.
I instantly lost all capacity to negotiate. I just smiled and said, yes, I'll take it.
Yeah, of course.
Because it was beyond my current beliefs. That's what you're talking about, though, with a lot of this is we have a limit, maybe limit's not the right word, but a limit to our belief systems. And if we set a goal beyond those current belief systems, we're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you'll be sabotaged along the way. You'll be, because it's like you can't have the thought processes that are necessary. On your own, I mean, you can probably have the thought processes that are necessary. And if you have support to develop your belief system and expand your comfort zone, I don't like, going outside your comfort zone. I prefer to expand my comfort zone so it's bigger. On something once stretched, doesn't need to go back. All right. So, expand your comfort zone. If you've got somebody to support you along that way, then, the bigger goals are more likely, but you need the support for your belief system. And, I've got a coach,
right?
I'm going to see after this show to,
well, you might need therapy after this one.
Well, I might. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what the next question is.
So as I build the company and
Mm.
I'm thinking about, the incremental growth idea, which aligns a lot with my belief system. Something you said earlier about, the big jumps and people don't make. I used to teach salespeople that like if they made $100,000 in year one, they always seem to in year two say, I'm gonna set a quota for $1 million. I'm like, look, you just sold
Mhm.
$100,000, you're not gonna hit 1 million. So instead of
Yeah.
hitting 1 million, can we hit 100,000, you know, what is it? Friggin' add, incremental. Can we get to 200,000? Then can we get to 300,000? And the likes. So where should I be looking at my company incremental stages, not just financially, but
Mm.
potentially staff and the like? How should I be looking at it all to go, this is how I should set goals for the business as a whole?
Well, you should be able to improve and scale your business without increasing the staff
That's
proportionately.
always a goal, right?
If you've got 200 staff and you're doing, 2 million, for example.
You're hurting.
No, you're struggling. Actually, sorry, 20 million. Well, do you know what I mean? I'm a
Yeah, yeah.
financial advisor, right? I've got the biggest calculator on my desk, right? I don't use my brain anymore. I'm 60 years of age, for goodness sake. I've had alcohol. It just
Right?
doesn't happen anymore, right? Okay. Um, but I can get the feel for things. No, you got 200 staff, you got to be doing, 10 million really. Okay. So, but you don't need to do 20 million. You probably would need maybe 250 staff,
Right. Right.
because it's really a case of it's especially these days with automation and, looking at your systems and making sure that everything that you're working with is working and that you have documented standard operation procedure so that a school leaver can come in and do some of the jobs, right? Just by following a tick box exercise. Now, if you
Right.
can create that sort of thing, then that would be the way you could scale your business.
Let's say I have those 200 employees. We'll stay in
Mm,
that scenario. How
yeah.
do I get them to set incremental goals to grow? How do we set a company culture, if you will? Because I promise you, goals is nowhere near in our what is it? We call them champions codes. Uh, Everybody else calls them something else. I forget what they call them. So you have your mission, core value. Everybody else calls them core values,
Core
right?
values. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
In our mission, our vision, our champions codes, we don't have the word goal written anywhere,
That's fine.
right?
It is still a goal though.
I won't argue. Yeah, I'm learning that as we're talking through that, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that may be something for you as a goal guy to think about. Is the
Mm,
word goal the wrong word?
mhm.
Does that drive more unadoption of the concept because they don't understand the word goal in itself, so they automatically turn off when somebody says you need to set goals? Food for thought. Um,
Yeah, no, it's a good call, and it's quite a masculine thing. It's quite a masculine word as well. So
oh,
it's
I
very
never thought about
difficult.
that.
It's very difficult for feminine
Why do you
people.
think that is?
I don't know. I think it is just, it's, I'm going to say it stood the test of time. And, you've just made me think that maybe I do need to modernize it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Um,
thank you for that,
oh, you're
Donnie.
welcome.
I
It's
appreciate
it's
it.
You're very welcome. You know, but to get people, you can't motivate people. You
No.
can kind of inspire people by your own actions, and they see you
Yeah.
doing anything, they're likely to take action.
Hmm.
Um, you know, but I can't imagine it's simple to look at 200 people and go, okay, let's set goals,
It's impossible.
right? Because
It's impossible. You can't do it as a group thing, right? You're going to have to take time with each of those individuals and find out what rocks their boat. And that is a big exercise, and it will take a lot of time, but you will reap the rewards. And you need to adjust your compensation program to suit the individuals that you've got on board, because everybody will be different. There will be probably 5 or 6 different remuneration packages that you can create. I mean, for example, I have, rather than sort of increase the salary of one of my team members, I've given her extra weeks paid annual leave so that she can spend the summer, because we have 4 weeks, we have 6 weeks holiday in the UK over the summer holidays for the kids, so she gets to spend more time with her children over that period. But we had a conversation about it and said, right, would this work better for you? And it's like, it got quite emotional because she did it last year. She's just finished it this year, but she did it last year. And she said, she came back at the end of the holiday and she said, that was the best time. I had more time with my kids. We made some memories. It's been amazing and all the rest of it. And now I have a team member for life.
So what would have happened if she said, I wanted 12 weeks?
We'd have to sort that out. We'd have to work it out. I mean, I hear you.
Right.
I hear you. Because, people take advantage, right?
That for me, that one's not about, yeah. That one wasn't for me on so much on taking advantage. We'll take it back to more of a money concept, right? If somebody is making $50,000 a year and they're talking about a raise and they want to get to $125,000 a year, right? They've only proved that they could handle a 20% bump, to keep them going. How do you handle that belief that, well, I should be here, but you're only paying me here. I think I'm here. You see me here. How do you handle that conversation, if you will?
It's a complicated conversation because everybody believes that they should be paid more. I mean, it's pretty old school that you do the job that you want to be paid for, as opposed to just doing the job that you're paid for, which is unfortunately the way.
Yeah, a lot of people just take the job that's offered to them, right, without even thought.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, right, I turn up at 9, I'll finish at 5. Thank you very much. That's right. Okay, well, these people don't have goals.
Yeah.
They don't have aspirations. They're, what's it? Meaningless generality rather than a meaningful specific, which is what we want. We want meaningful specifics in our lives. So, the person that wants wants to increase from 50 to 100, let's say we double it, right? First off, are they in a position where that is feasible, right? Because there will be people that have got it and are doing the 125 and the 150 with the same raw material. And when I say the raw material, the same number of leads and the same number of, opportunities.
Right.
And they just have something extra. Very often, sometimes that something extra can be trained, and sometimes that something extra is just charisma, which, you can't train somebody to become charismatic.
For sure.
I mean, we've got it in spades, obviously. And, we just picked it up, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were
good looks and charm too. I mean, let's just throw it all on the table.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So as I'm hearing you talk, what I've come to a current belief I'm now forming is, because goals are so intrinsically personal, there's so much that leans into those goals. There's no way to put a blanket statement on it saying goals work or goals don't work, because it's 100% based on the individual's personal journey and where they're at. And you
Yeah.
can't ever understand what somebody's personal beliefs are because you can't ever 100% walk in their shoes. You can make some broad assumptions, along those lines,
Mhm.
but you can't fully understand it. How does somebody understand their own limit to their beliefs? Like, what's their personal
Therapy.
ceiling? Therapy?
Therapy. Therapy.
I'll agree with that because I've done it.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, you know, well, there is a bit, is being brave about getting therapy. But, I mean, it's not anything that anybody should be ashamed of or whatever.
100% not.
There's always stuff that we've picked up between the age of 0 and 12 that we don't understand, has been tucked away and just keeps coming and scaring the bejesus out of us every now and again, because that's where our beliefs all come from. So there's no. So how, back to the question, we can understand where people have come from if we take the time. You can always
Okay.
find out about somebody if you take the time. And if you're interested in people, then, and you take the time, that's where you will get the best out of people,
Mm.
right? As an employer, okay, you need to, you cannot be autocratic in your, system, my way or the highway or any of that
Mm.
sort of thing. You've got to be involved with your team if you really want to get the best out of them. And so to find that out, you need to talk to them on a regular basis. And that becomes a big, tall ask if you get 200 people.
Real quick.
Yeah. But then you delegate the thing to a competent HR person.
And then all of a sudden you hire an HR person and now you have HR problems where you never had them before. As soon as you hire the HR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You
Yeah.
just got to maybe you subcontract that one out. So they're always on edge, right? How long is he going to pay my contract for? Maybe that's a subcontract one rather than an individual hire one.
Right. Yeah, because I know for me that these last 6 years running a business have been a freaking self-reflected, I don't think there's any tool on the planet better than building a business to meet the dude in the mirror. Because you're going to find out what the hell you're made of really quick, because I really believe that if 90% of the world saw what happened and what it took to run a business,
Mhm.
they would love their job so much more than the craziness we put ourselves through.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
it's pure insanity. So for me, it's been not easy, but I've learned to find my limits, right? Where's that self-imposed ceiling on different beliefs in different areas of the business? I'm not always good at figuring out how to get through them, hence coaches and therapists and the like to figure out how to get, through those. Is there strategies outside of a therapist for one to become more self-aware so they can understand better how they should set the goals for themselves? So they're not setting these goals that their subconscious doesn't immediately go, yeah, you're not going to be able to pull that off,
Mhm.
right? How do we get to or understand where our own personal ceiling is if they haven't done the groundwork to uncover that ceiling?
Well, if you're starting from zero, or nothing, no goal setting stuff, you need to take a good look at where you are in life, knowing that you are where you are because of the decisions that you've made in the past,
Complete ownership. God, thank you for saying that. Because
right?
most
It's
people are
nobody
looking at
else's
life. Yeah.
responsibility, right? You are where you are because of the decisions that you've made in the past. So reflect on that. because you will have made some fucking excuse my French.
You can cuss all day long.
I've been very, very careful.
Oh, dude.
And, I thought it was a family show,
No, fuck
right?
no. I love talking to you guys over there in the UK because you guys cuss worse than I do.
Well, I'd say I have done my best here. Yeah, I mean, you will have made some howlers, right? And you need to
Yep.
reflect on those and then think about what you could have done differently. Because if you carry on doing the same thing, it's the definition of insanity, as we know, right? Expecting different results and carrying on doing exactly the same thing is the definition of insanity. So the first thing that you need to do is understand that you are responsible for the position that you're in based upon the decisions that you've made in the past. Reflect on those, have a look at those, see if there are any lessons that you can learn from those. Okay. If you can't work out the lessons yourself, ask your spouse or significant other. They'll tell you.
For sure.
Because they knew everything that you were going to do that was wrong, because that's the way they are. Anyway, more dry British humor there.
No, you're good. You're good.
I need to, so I did think once I was doing a gig with 1,500 people, in the audience, and I was thinking, do I hold up a sign which says dry British humor? Just,
you might.
because it's like, oh, some of that might just go past them. That's where you've got to start. You've got to be pragmatic about the fuck ups that you've made in the past and make a decision that you're not going to do them again. That you have learned a lesson from them.
It's got to be a little bit more than a decision because the arguments to be made. Well, you really didn't make a decision. Well, no. A lot of people, they do is they make a decision that they're going to change their ways.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, they're right back to where they were.
Yeah.
Right. Is it they didn't actually make the decision, or did they not apply the right action, or is there too many variables to put it in a box?
If you make a decision to do something and you believe in it 100x%, there's got to increase the likelihood of it. If you're committing yourself to a goal and it's not realistic, all right, then there's every likelihood that you'll slip back into the way that you were previously. It's got to be important enough for you to have the discipline. It's all about discipline, right? So the belief has got to be big enough for you to apply the discipline and then overcome the obstacles which will come your way. Expect obstacles, expect hurdles.
And that led me down to the path going all the way back to the beginning is maybe it's not so much about making a drastic change. Maybe it's small incremental changes, right? Set those smaller goals, those smaller ideals that the small incremental changes, and quit trying to do the big swing. So, I don't know if it's sales, because I know sales, and you're not doing the reach out, you're not doing the network, you're not doing the things you need to do to get your sales to a higher level. Instead of saying, I'm going to make 100 cold calls, on Monday, maybe it's so much more of, let's say 5. Can we make 5 cold calls on Monday? Right. And then cool. Can we do 2 days of 5?
And the starting point is look at your stats in the past, right? Measure what you've done in the past. Because if the number of sales calls that you've done is, 20 in whatever time period, it's like, and then there's there's the sales calls, there's the presentation, then there's the closing, and then there's the paperwork and the follow through, right? Each of those little stages, if you can just improve each one just a little bit within manageable amounts, then the final result will be exponential.
Nope. I like it. Doug, this is a lot of damn fun. Thanks for dancing with me on this one, because it's something that I've fought with for a extremely long time. So thanks for some of the clarity on all this. How do people get in touch with you? How do they reach out to you? How do they learn more information?
Well, it's dougbennett.co.uk. The .co.uk is the UK bit,
Yep. Yep.
right? They know that. It's just more humor. Um,
Thank you. I
we've
want
got
to sign. I officially want to sign.
um, I've got a From Financial Struggle to Financial Success PDF, which I've got bitlied up or bitlied up.
Oh, Bitly. Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I can let you have that, or do I read it out, or
Oh,
what
go
you
ahead and
do?
read it out, and then we'll include it in show notes.
No, okay, I have to put my glasses on for that. Okay,
Doug, your age is
right.
showing.
So, yeah, I know, and mate, yeah. So we've got https://bit.ly/struggle struggle success success. Okay, that'll
Perfect.
take you to my struggle to success. That I mean, we didn't touch on it, right? But in 2010, I was on the edge of bankruptcy, and I found the gold book, and then I sold my business for 7 figures, right? So the what you've got in struggle to success is the essence of everything that I learned. I've been in business for 40 years. It's like, it's like the simple stuff, because I like to keep things simple, right? That's how you win big. Oh my God,
Love
there's
it.
the title of the book there. Maybe.
So to say, he's also got the book "Think Simple, Win Big." You know. Wow,
Okay, but that's it. You can book a 1-to-1 if you're struggling with your goals. Just book a 1-to-1. We can have a chat, and see if I can bring any value to your situation, because that's what it's all about, right? Can we bring some value to your situation? And I'm pragmatic and realistic and old enough to know whether I can or not relatively quickly.
Love it. Love it. Well, guys, if you are still hanging out with us and enjoying the show, do us a favor, take a screenshot of wherever you're listening or watching this, post it out on social media, tag me and Doug in it. If we can see it, we'll come in, jump in, comment, and say howdy and hello. Otherwise, love you, made it. See you. Bye.